There was a time when America was even poorer than India, was drowned in debt, but today, it sits as the world's enforcer. It has the most powerful military, the largest economy, and the most advanced technology. But how did all this happen? Let me explain in very simple terms. I'll keep it short, but you will understand everything. Increase in tension. After 1492, the armies of France, Britain, and Spain began to wipe out the Native Americans living in America. Most Native Americans died from diseases. Those who didn't die were killed, and a few unfortunate ones left their lands and fled. In this race to grab land, Britain and France clashed with each other. This war lasted for 7 years, in which France was defeated and Britain fell into debt. With a touch of humor, Britain decided to recover this debt by imposing taxes on its 13 colonies in America. But these 13 colonies came together. They declared George Washington the general of their army. These colonies fought against Britain and overthrew its empire. And so, on July 4th, 1776, the United States of America was born, made up of just 13 states, and drowned in massive debt. The reason for their debt was that to fight Britain, each of the 13 states had issued its own war bonds. Fast-paced, energetic, because these 13 states were fighting their war with borrowed money, they fell deep into debt. And there was another problem. All of them had their own currencies. So everyone had issued their own bonds. Some even had their own banknotes. You can imagine it as if Los Angeles County, Cook County, Harris County, Maricopa County, and Miami-Dade County all started printing their own notes. In such a situation, trade and business would become almost impossible. How would anyone know which note to accept in exchange for goods? And in such a place, no one would give a loan. This is what was happening with America. America had no money of its own, and no one from outside would lend to it. And without loans, there is no progress. Resolved, in 1789, George Washington became the first president of America. Alexander Hamilton became the Treasury Secretary. It was Hamilton who told Washington that if they didn't manage the debt, America would remain poor forever. After this, the American government took on the debt of every state, and the First Bank of America was established, and the government announced that anyone who wanted their money back in exchange for their bonds could get it from them. A common currency was implemented across the entire country, but the central government didn't have the money to pay people back. So they imposed taxes, and this tax is also applied to whiskey. Now the farmers who were in the business of making whiskey turned against the government. The government crushed the rebellion, collected taxes forcefully, and then started clearing the bond payments with that money. Grandiose, triumphant, this made other countries trust America, believing that this nation could repay its debts. So America started getting loans from abroad, and this is where the story of America becoming a superpower begins. America's next goal was to expand its territory, which meant it needed more land that was occupied by France. America saw an opportunity. As Napoleon's army in France got tied up in the war in Europe, and France felt the need for money, America paid $5 million to buy Louisiana, and overnight America's land area doubled. With this purchase, America got the ports it needed for essential trade. Dramatic, climactic, but here America faced a problem. In 1816, Britain was producing the cheapest goods and dumping them in different countries around the world. America felt that if these goods entered their country, their own production, meaning their factories, would be destroyed. Following this, America created the tariff system, which means it imposed taxes on goods coming from outside. And thus America's domestic production began to grow very rapidly. All this progress was happening in the north. The southern part of America was untouched by this progress. Furthermore, in the south, African people were enslaved and fallen to wood. The people in the north were completely against slavery. After this, Abraham Lincoln won the election and told the South to free the slaves. The South essentially told him to get lost. And subsequently 11 southern states announced the formation of a new country. This is where the American Civil War began, which the federal government won, and slavery was abolished in America, quickening the pace. But at this point, America had two fears. First, this country was very large, but its population was very small, meaning it was difficult to protect its borders. Second, America feared that the South might try to secede again. Therefore, to connect the North with the South, America began to lay a network of rail and roads. But for this work, they needed laborers and engineers with technical knowledge which America did not have. It was from here that America began to market itself to the world as the land of opportunity, saying, "Come to our country, get a good job, you'll receive a good salary, freedom and a better future." People started going to America, and money began to flow in with them. One point to note here is that throughout this entire story, whatever questionable acts America committed, it did everything in its national interest. In America, Rockefeller handled oil, Carnegie handled steel, and J.P. Morgan handled finance. In this way, America became the world's largest industrial giant. Pause, then continue intensely. Now, with so many goods being produced in America, it needed markets to sell them. America saw that Spain had occupied Cuba. America saw Cuba the tonic of freedom. A 4-month war with Spain followed. America won, meaning Cuba became independent, but America then took control of it. And not just Cuba, the Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico were also taken over by America. It created markets for itself. But these were not the things that made America a superpower. The next major milestone was the First World War, building even more intensity. In 1914, World War I began. When the countries of Europe were fighting amongst themselves, they looked towards America to see whose side it would take. America said, I have nothing to do with this. I am neutral. However, America started running its factories at double the speed and told weapons to both sides. It gave money to whoever needed it. The result was that Europe was devastated and impoverished, while America's pockets were filled. It was from this that America learned that the most money in the world can be made the fastest by selling weapons, and if there isn't a war happening somewhere, you should instigate one. With gravity, after World War I, Europe was completely destroyed. To rebuild Europe, American companies began supplying goods from America to Europe. Because American goods were selling like hotcakes, a tremendous amount of money poured into the American stock market. People began investing blindly and the stock market soared. At this point, investors like J.P. Morgan quietly sold their shares and booked their profits. As soon as the common people saw this, they all started selling their shares in a panic. This is how America went into the Great Depression. Taking a deep breath. To pull America out of this crisis, in 1933, President Roosevelt initiated a program to build roads, schools, and dams. He provided government jobs, gave subsidies and MSP, minimum support price, to farmers, and issued government tenders to set up factories. Gradually, the American economy got back on track. Final dramatic arc, and now comes the biggest turning point in American history, the entry of Hitler. Hitler occupied Poland in World War II.